Hi there, Candy Lane fifth graders. So this is a little bit weird for me because today is actually Wednesday and it is the 22nd of April. But because we have to get these all ready for you a week ahead of time, you're not going to see this movie until May 1st. So today is actually the day that you voted for Faith's name. And so this is our little friend Faith, and we're going to be talking about her in other instances, and I'm going to be asking you to do some things with her. So you can look and see if she pops into any of the videos. But part of the reason that I like the name Faith, and I didn't choose it, but I'm very thrilled that you did, is it means trust or confidence. And one of the things that people say is when a disaster happens, you need to look for the helpers. And so I want you to be looking around you to think about who is helping you. So one of the things that I'm doing to help is the government is saying that they are recommending face masks. And the people in my apartment complex who take care of us, the people who come in and do maintenance and things like that, they said that they didn't have masks. And so one of the things I did is I went online and I learned how to make a mask. And this is, I sewed this piece of fabric all together. And now I'm turning it right side out, because I don't know if you know this, but when you sew fabric, you put the pretty sides, the right sides, they call them, together. And then I am making this mask. And then eventually I'll put some clothesline here and they can tie it around their necks and squish it up and have a mask. So that's what I'm doing to help the people in my community. So think about what you're doing to help the people in your community. And the reason I chose to talk about that today, besides that we have our little Faith here, is that one of the things that, here we go, view, present, sorry about that. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot in Repeated Ideas is Dad really helping? So Chase is wondering if his dad is actually authentically helping people, or, you know, what is his dad doing? So I want you to think about that. Is Dad really helping people? Because remember, he's charging them a lot of money to help them prepare for, or well, not to prepare for, but to help them fix the disasters. So I want you to think about that. And I want you to keep thinking about time, the unusual things that happen, the tries. And remember, he says, I'm not doing tries with Nicole anymore. I'm telling her the whole thing. They're arguing over where Emily is going to land. And then Chase keeps wondering, is my dad really helping? Okay. So it's 3:33. I already said that at the end of the last video, but now I'm going to continue reading. Throughout the afternoon, parents arrived to pick up their kids. Several came with their SUVs packed, ready to head out of the storm area. The teachers seemed eager to leave too, especially the ones with children. By the time the final bell rang, there were only 100 students left in the building. More than half of them had parents waiting for them at the curb, leaving only 42 bus riders to put on 9 buses. Dr. Krupp thought it was ridiculous to send out that many buses with so few students, an opinion that all the bus drivers agreed with. The traffic's terrible. It's the worst jam I've ever seen. The highways are like parking lots. Dr. Krupp drafted 2 most experienced drivers to take the remaining 42 students home in 2 buses. Now my teacher spidey senses are going, this is a really bad idea, because if it's a parking lot, if you put them on 9 buses, those 9 buses would each get a few kids home faster, but that's not what they chose to do. While they were figuring out who to put on which bus, Chase stared up at the sky. He didn't like what he saw. The clouds were an angry, swollen gray and looked like they were about to burst. What time does it usually get dark around here? He asked Nicole. 7:30 or 8, she answered. Why? He looked at his watch. It's 3:40, and look how dark it is. You're right. It looks like it's going to rain. It's going to do a lot worse than that. He looked up at the sky and was tempted to call his father again. Instead, he said loudly, What's the latest on Emily? He hadn't seen a weather report for a couple of hours, but he estimated that the wind was blowing at least 15 miles an hour where they were standing. and gusting to 25 or 30. The thick, bruised clouds above him were moving fast. Now the clouds are not really bruised, that once again, they're putting a picture in our brain of a purpley looking cloud. No one answered him. He asked again, louder. This time everyone turned his way. Dr. Krupp looked annoyed. I talked to my husband 15 minutes ago. He said that Emily is going to hit south of here around midnight. How far south? No one knows. What category? Right now it's a category 5, but they're predicting Emily will be downgraded back to a category 4 by the time she makes landfall. I've heard it's going to be a category 3, one of the bus drivers added. That's still winds in excess of 100 miles an hour, Chase said. I don't think the buses are a good idea. Dr. Krupp put her hands on her hips. Really? And how do you suggest we get you and the other students home? I don't think we should go home. I think we should stay right here. The school has a low profile. That means it's not a skyscraper up in the air that the wind will hit and rattle. It's a low building, sort of like Candy Lane. The buildings are constructed out of reinforced concrete. The safest thing for us to do is ride out the storm in the cafeterium. So the cafeterium is a combination between a cafeteria and an auditorium. It's right in the middle of the campus, no windows, protected on all 4 sides by other buildings. How long have you been in Florida, Chase? Dr. Krupp asked. Here we go, Chase thought. He took a deep breath. 2 days. And how many hurricanes have you been in? None. But I know enough to stay exactly where I am when I have everything I need to survive. You're getting on the bus, Chase. We are not spending the night at the school. We don't have authorization from the district or your parents. Getting permission would take several hours. She looked at her watch. You'll be home in less than 2 hours. Nicole stepped forward. Chase didn't want her to get involved. This was his argument. Let me talk to him, Dr. Krupp. Make it quick. You're leaving in 2 minutes. Dr. Krupp walked back to the drivers. The kids stared at Chase like he had lost his mind. One of them made clucking noises like a chicken. Chase took a step towards the boy, but Nicole grabbed his arm and pulled him down a breezeway where no one could hear them. What do you think you're doing, Chase? You're mad at me? He couldn't believe it. He'd expected Nicole to be on his side, but she looked more upset than Dr. Krupp. Dr. Krupp is trying to get everyone home safely, and Dr. Krupp is trying to get us out of her hair so she can go home. She doesn't want to spend the night with 42 kids in the cafetorium. That's right. She wants to spend the night with her own family, just like I do, just like everyone here does, just because you don't have... Nicole stopped herself. You think this is about me? Chase asked. Who else would it be about? So she just said something pretty hurtful. She's like, you just don't want to go home because you don't have a family. And that's not really what Chase is doing at all. It's about all of us, Chase said. We are leaving a perfect place to ride out a hurricane. The 2 buses are going to take us to our homes that are not nearly as safe as Palm Breeze Middle School. That is, if we even make it home. Everyone is talking about where the hurricane is going to make landfall. Chase pointed to the ground. I've got news for you. It's going to be here, right here where we're standing, and it will be a long time before midnight. Dr. Krupp cannot make anyone get on a bus. If we stick together, we can stay at school where we'll be safe. You can spend the night here if you want, Nicole said, but I'm getting on the bus and going home. You're being paranoid. Paranoid means that you're really, really worried about something that's probably not going to happen. Chase watched her stamp back to the curb and the waiting buses. He thought about the farmer in Oklahoma who had left his combine in the middle of the hailstorm. He'd been going home too. He'd made it about 100 yards before he got killed by the hailstorms. He'd gotten hit in the head twice. The first stone knocked him out. The second killed him, according to the newspaper. Dr. Krupp started dividing the 42 students into 2 groups. Chase thought about holding his ground and refusing to go, but it wouldn't accomplish anything. She would still put the other kids on the buses and send them on their way, including Nicole. Dr. Krupp would stay behind with him and either call his father and tell him to pick Chase up or call the police and have them deal with him. Going against everything he knew, everything his father had taught him, he joined the others at the curb, ignoring the smirks and clucking sounds. He wasn't about to let Nicole get on that bus without him. Mrs. O'Leary is calling your parents to tell them you might be a little late because of the alternate route, the traffic, and the weather, so they don't worry. Chase was the last to board his bus. As he stepped through the door, Dr. Krupp put her hand on his shoulder. There's nothing to be nervous about, Chase. Don't be afraid. You'll be at the Rossi's farm in no time at all. There's everything to be worried about, Dr. Krupp. He pointed at the sky. Emily is here. You better drive straight home and stay away from the windows. Chase realized that Dr. Krupp was trying to be kind, but being kind didn't make someone right. He was not afraid to ride on a bus, but there wasn't time to explain to her what his father called the gut barometer. He called it TGB. Everyone has one, his father had told him. It works just like a real barometer. When the pressure drops, the weather is going to change. The TGB is in your solar plexus. You feel a pressure drop in your gut. Most of the time, people ignored their gut gauge, and most of the time it was okay to ignore it, until the one time it wasn't okay. Chase knew this is one of those times. So have you ever felt just right inside you that you shouldn't do something or that something bad was going to happen? And so his father calls that the gut gauge and says you should listen to your gut. Chase knew this was one of those times. He got on the bus and the driver pulled the door closed behind him. The kids had all paired off and were grinning at him as he made his way past them. Nicole had taken an aisle seat next to some guy and didn't even glance at him as he walked by. Gluck, 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 someone said from the front of the bus. A few kids laughed. Chase took the bench seat at the back of the bus, right next to the emergency exit. So now we're at 5:15 p.m., so we're 2 hours later. And remember, Dr. Krupp said, oh, you'll be home at the Rossi's in 2 hours. Does anyone have a cell signal? 3 hours before nightfall, it was almost completely dark outside. Chase sat in the back and watched the lights as 16 cell phones flicked on. They had been on the bus an hour and a half, and they had dropped off 4 people. Now think about that. There were 42 people split onto 2 buses, which gives us about 20 people per bus, and they'd been on the bus an hour and a half and only dropped off 4 people. He knew there wasn't a cell signal because he'd been checking his phone since they left the school. He wanted to talk to his father and thought about breaking out the satellite phone, but it was only to be used in case of an emergency. And in order for it to work, his father would have had to have his satellite phone on, which was unlikely at this point in the storm. No signal, no bars, dead as a doornail. Gusts of wind crashed into the bus like ocean waves as they inched along in bumper-to-bumper traffic. The rain poured down so hard it was pointless to look out the window. All they could see were headlights and glimpses of angry motorists. The bus stopped again. The kid next to Nicole got up, along with 4 others, and they made their way to the front. Okay, the driver shouted. Do you see your parents' cars out there? The kids peered through the steamed windows. They said they did. Are you sure? Because I'm not letting you off this bus unless you do. I don't care how close your house is to this stop. You can't walk in this stuff. If your folks aren't there, I'll drive you to your doorstep. Now, I'm pretty impressed by that. That driver's being really responsible. They all promised that their parents were waiting. Okay, on the count of 3, I'll pull the door open and you all bail out quickly so I don't get too drenched. 1, 2, 3. The doors shuddered open and the kids jumped out and into the wind and rain like paratroopers. The driver got soaked anyway, to everyone's amusement, except Chase's. Chase noticed Nicole move over into the window seat vacated by the boy. Why? She wouldn't be able to see out, and it was more dangerous to sit near the window than the aisle. He knew he should make his way up to her and say something, but the only things he had to say would sound wimpy, so he stayed where he was, thinking about how dangerous school buses were. At his last school, he'd done a report on them and gotten an A, but the teacher had said it would be best not to put it up on the bulletin board with the other reports because it might scare people. So Chase does a lot of studying about disasters and things that could go wrong because of who his dad is. School buses are not designed to operate in winds exceeding 50 miles an hour. Even on a calm day, school buses can be unsafe. In every state, it's against the law to drive in a car without a seatbelt. By law, children under a certain weight have to ride in the back, strapped into an appropriate car seat or booster. Parents wait with their kids at the bus stop so nothing bad happens to them, and then they watch them climb onto the bus and blow them kisses goodbye. Florida is one of the few states that require seatbelts in school buses, but only in newer school buses. The Palm Breeze bus was not new. The driver was the only one belted in. Wimp, Chase thought, but he couldn't help himself. Over the past year, he'd seen too many disasters and what happened when people didn't recognize them for what they were. The kids on the bus thought this was an adventure, but Chase knew it was just the beginning of what, for some of them, would be the worst night of their lives. So that's what's called foreshadowing. When you get clues in the book so that it's telling you something bad is going to happen, that's called F-O-R-E, going in front, shadowing, kind of like showing what's going to happen. So we'll see what that foreshadowing is going to do when we start quadrant 3. Have a great weekend.